James Bear.
Where?
Right here.
My wife and I recently went to the Great Smoky Mountains, stayed in Tennessee, and got some great photos in the process of being able to explore all the great sites that they have in the Smokies. I'm going to show you some of the locations I visited and the photos that I got in the process. At the end, I'm going to have a few tips, tricks, and a few gotchas to help you make your own trip to the Smoky Mountains as successful as it possibly can be. The first location I wanted to share with you is probably going to be one of the more popular locations. It's going to be Clingman's Dome. Clingman's Dome is the highest peak along the Appalachian Trail and in the Smoky Mountains. There is an observation tower at the top of it. The peak is at about 6,600 feet, and the last bit going up to the observation tower is probably a good half-mile straight up, so it's definitely not for the faint of heart, but it is definitely worth the view. So the next location I want to share with you is the Ben Morton Overlook. It's just before you get to Clingman's Dome, coming up out of Gatlinburg and the National Park Service headquarters and visitor center. It's a higher elevation and has a great valley looking to the northwest, so it makes for a great sunset location. This is a very popular location for sunsets, so make sure to get there early to make sure that you can secure yourself a spot to get the vantage point that you're looking for. Up next is going to be Cades Cove. Cades Cove is about 25 miles to the west of the National Park Service headquarters and visitor center, and it features an 11-mile scenic loop around the area that gives you some great fields and open fields and tree lines, plus a great vista view of the Smoky Mountains. It is a very popular location, and the traffic does back up there, so be mindful of that when you're traveling through. There are a couple of cut-throughs that you can cut it short if you want to, but like I said, it's an 11-mile loop. A lot of beautiful locations, lots of wildflowers, and the mountains in the background, trees, birds, animals. The wildlife is absolutely incredible there. So I definitely recommend that you take the trip out to Cades Cove. So the last location that we visited was actually the Roaring Forks Motor Nature Trail. It begins in Gatlinburg and takes a loop around the northern part of the Smokies. It has a lot of beautiful views from some of the pull-offs, but it also is home to some very popular locations and attractions within the park. The parking area for Rainbow Falls is there, and the parking area for Grotto Falls are there. Both great hikes and great waterfalls to go check out. They are very popular though, so it does fill up. The other sites there that we stopped at was the Bud Ogle Farm. It was a 19th century farmhouse and farmstead with some beautiful woodland areas and views from there. The last part is a little bit of a waterfall called a Place of a Thousand Drips. It's a great location as well for some waterfall photography. It's right on the side of the road with a pull-off right there, so you can pull off and just sit and relax by the waterfall. So for a few tips to help you plan your trip out to the Smokies, I would definitely recommend doing some research to get some of this information, but also these three things are really important and were very important for making our trip out to the Smokies as successful as it was. The first tip is going to be the parking passes. You need a parking pass in the park after March 1st. It's $15 for the week. You can actually print it out at home to speed this up for you. It's required to have 4 parking in all the pull-offs within the park. And at the visitor center, there's a couple of kiosks that you can get these parking passes, but there's always a long line. Every time that we went through the visitor center for whatever reason, there was always a long line looking for those parking passes. So it's 15 bucks for the week. It's really not expensive. Print it out at home and you can skip these kiosks and the line ahead of time. The next tip is going to be the marquee sites. I mentioned them before, the waterfalls at Grotto Falls or Rainbow Falls, or going out to Laurel Falls, or even Clingman's Dome. These are very popular locations, and if you're planning on going out to them, I recommend that you go as early as you possibly can. When we went through the Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail, we were coming by Rainbow Falls at about 11 o'clock in the morning, and the parking lot was absolutely packed. There were people that were walking from a half a mile down the road up to the trailhead for Rainbow Falls trailhead in order to get up there. So like I said, it's very, very popular. Clingman's Dome is no exception to this either. Clingman's Dome has a nice large looped parking lot at the end of the road getting up there. There were a lot of people that were not only parked there, but I want to say orbiting the parking lot looking for spots. So, you know, it does get kind of crowded there, and it is very popular. So there's going to be a lot of people there and a lot of cars around. So that's another location that I would definitely recommend getting to early. The last tip is actually at the National Park Service headquarters and visitor center just outside of Gatlinburg. There's a little gift shop in there with a lot of, you know, typical tourist, you know, t-shirts and stickers and everything else. But a nice little feature that they have there is they have a rack that's full of guides for all the various things that you could be looking for in the Smokies. You can get a lot of information online, but if you go get these guides have a lot of detailed information, a lot of detailed maps and information that go along with the various sites on these maps. They're $1 a piece, so it's real cheap. We picked up, I think, 3 or 4 of them, so we spent less than $5 to get all the guides that we needed for the entire trip. Like I said, there's a lot of information online, but these guides really take that to the next level, and I would recommend picking up the guides that you're looking for when you get there. So the last 3 things I want to tell you guys about is a few gotchas. Some of these might be obvious to a few of you, some of them might not be. The first, I think is the most obvious, but it does bear to repeat, and I kind of, no pun intended, but it's about the bears. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is home to approximately 2,000 bears. So you're gonna see them. They're gonna be around, and they're going to be out there, you know, to be viewed. Make sure to keep your distance from them. Practice proper bear safety. You know, don't be throwing them cheeseburgers or anything. It's actually, you know, against the law to feed the animals and pick flowers within the national park. So don't do anything foolish like that. Keep your distance, view from a distance, bring your binoculars, bring your camera with your long lens in order to get those photos of the bears, because it is their home. They are all over the place, and they are, you know, quite prevalent. So make sure that you practice good bear safety to keep yourself safe. The next gotcha is going to be the weather. It was mid-May when we were there, so it's a beautiful time of the year. It's right after all the initial spring melt and everything like that, and we were there just before Memorial Day and before the real vacationer traffic started to pick up. It was about 75 degrees in Gatlinburg every day, which was beautiful. A little bit warmer for my taste, but you know, beautiful weather the entire time that we were there. 75 degrees is definitely a pretty comfortable temperature. The gotcha for this is when you get up to Clingman's Dome, as I mentioned before, Clingman's Dome is at about 6,600 feet. That's pretty high up. The temperature differential between Gatlinburg and Clingman's Dome was 25 degrees. So that 75 degree day in Gatlinburg can turn into a 50 degree day with a pretty steady breeze up at Clingman's Dome. So make sure that you pack accordingly and plan accordingly for that, because you are going to see a lot of temperature variations as you travel through the park. The last gotcha is going to be something that I think is prevalent throughout our society now. Is, you know, everybody has their cell phone and probably does, you know, all their mapping and routing on their cell phone. The cell service in the parks is, I dare say, lacking. I wouldn't even say that it's lacking, but it's definitely not up to the same par that most of us are used to out, you know, in our regular towns and, you know, some of these other vacationing areas. So because cell service is not as strong within the park as, you know, people would expect, make sure to download some offline maps so that way you can do your sat nav from your phone without having to connect to the internet to get it. I would also recommend having a paper map as a backup for sure, because in case you have an issue with your phone or the map didn't download correctly or you didn't get all of the map, you want to be able to have a map to work with. So definitely get a paper map as a backup. So that was a recap of our trip to the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee and North Carolina. It's a beautiful area. It's a national park that I've been wanting to go to for a very long time, and it certainly did not disappoint. I did not have enough time to do all of the different things that I wanted to do, so I certainly have a list and have come away with a list longer than what I started. Certainly worth visiting. So I recommend, if you're looking for a national park to get out to that's on the East Coast, the Great Smoky National Park. Great Smoky Mountains National Park is definitely a highlight of the East Coast. So I definitely recommend you getting out there. Thank you very much for watching this video and coming along with me on this. I really do appreciate everybody's support, comments, likes, shares, anything that you've done. It is really appreciated. If you can give me a like and a subscribe on this video if you haven't already, that is, like I said, greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for coming along. Make sure to get out there, take some great photos, and I'll see you again next week.